Welcome into college football overtime. My name is Garrett Chapman. His name is Abe Gordon. We have a lot to get into. College football, it never sleeps. We're also moving into episodes once a week, just because we still have a little bit to talk about every single week, and we want to give you great content. So make sure that you are liking and subscribing to these videos just so you can see our beautiful faces every single week as we continue the conversation about college football. We have a lot to get into, Abe. We have Bill O'Brien and Chip Kelly and Ryan Grubb and everybody keep moving around the chess pieces of college football. They just never seem to stop moving. But before we get into that, I got to welcome you in. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, we're doing good, brother. You're right. It is the carousel that slows down but does not come to a complete halt. So it circles around a little bit more this week.
Absolutely. And of course, we have the news from last week, and we'll start up in Boston with Boston College. Jeff Hafley, he goes up to the NFL. He leaves Boston College. And so that created an opening and that they filled very quickly. Bill O'Brien, a guy who had just accepted a job to be the offensive coordinator for Ohio State, he determines, no, I'm going to go be a head coach again. And for all of the hate that he gets, he was a pretty good college football head coach. It's been a little while. Of course, you have to go back to his time at Penn State, where he resuscitated that program after the fallout of the Sandusky trials and everything else. But he brought that program back before moving on to the NFL. And then he's sort of just lived as a coordinator for a little while. And I think he's a good coach. I mean, people kind of badger him and kind of bash him a little bit. And no, I think he's going to be going to a pretty good situation up there at Boston College. And I think it's a good fit.
Yeah, it feels like a good, solid hire for a couple of reasons. Obviously, he's ingratiated into that Boston area. He's from there. He's coached there. I know there's some family stuff going on in relation to Boston as well. So he does fit there. The thing about Bill O'Brien is, and you kind of said it, like he's a good, solid head coach. Like I don't know if he'll ever be the guy that is a championship winning head coach, that is like the highest power programs, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the US. Like, I don't know if he would ever work at those spots, but in a situation like Boston College, where he can really get some roots growing and where 8-4 is a good year, 9-3 is acceptable, and you're not really freaking out if you're not 11-1 every season. It just feels like a really good fit. It feels like a Boston College program that's not that far off from being consistent as a program anyways, but is always going to have the limitations that you have with NIL and in the transfer portal stuff. You get a good quality head coach that can stay there for a number of seasons, can really build that base. And that feels like what Bill O'Brien is here to do. We always thought it made sense for him to go to Ohio State. I mean, he's an outstanding offensive coordinator. Whether you like him or not, he's gotten stuff done everywhere he's been. And there's going to have a ton of talent with the Buckeyes there. So obviously there for a very short time. And now he goes to Boston College. And I think it's a good move for both. I mean, again, this goes back to a discussion you and I have had a couple of months ago is programs need to understand who they are and what they can be in the grand scope of things. Boston College is not a program that's winning a national championship. It's not. Maybe in a given year, if things line up, then sure, you make a run at it, you get into the playoffs, who knows? So with that said, understanding that 8-4 would be considered a successful season for Boston College in any given year feels like a good, solid, concrete hire of a guy who can accomplish that and accomplish it year over year.
Yeah, I mean, this is a program, like you mentioned, they haven't won 8 games since 2009. They haven't been nationally ranked since Matt Ryan played there in 2008. Like, this isn't necessarily a top-tier program, but I think Bill O'Brien is a good coach that can make them at least relevant, and I think that's really the biggest goal from this hire. I mean, like I said, he caught a lot of flack at Alabama because I mean, I guess they didn't reach their potential, but he had top 10 scoring offenses in both of his seasons. I mean, he averaged 41 points per game in 2022, and people were calling for his head. It was just a very interesting sort of debacle. The life of a offensive coordinator is certainly never an easy one because it always seems like people are coming for you or gunning for your job. But look, I mean, like this dude, he can make Boston College relevant just based off of his experience uh, and the respect that people have for him at the college level. I mean, I think it's going to be an intriguing option, at least in terms of the transfer portal. Not this cycle necessarily. I don't know what exactly they're going to do next year. Castellanos, the quarterback, has already announced that he's going to be coming back. So I think that this could be an interesting marriage. I mean, you have a quarterback who's dynamic, who can do a lot with the ball. You have a strong rushing attack. I think this could be an eight or 9 win team if Bill O'Brien is able to put the pieces together. I don't know necessarily what they're going to do in terms of success year one, but you have the blueprint is there for them to put the pieces together.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know if year one you're reaching up to 8 or 9 because you're building off the base that Jeff Hafley has. But I'll tell you what else Bill O'Brien brings Boston College is, and no offense to Jeff Hafley, you've got a guy that have put multiple positions and multiple players into the NFL, and that is a recruiting tool. There's no way around it. I mean, this is a guy that has delivered guys to the first round while at Alabama. And so I think that's important. And he's been around the NFL game. He knows what teams are looking for based on his time with New England. And so when I look at him as I get it. You're maybe not getting all 5 stars or 4 stars, but he could probably sneak out a couple diamonds in the rough, a couple raw 3 stars that he can really turn into something. I think this is, like you said, an opportunity to really build that base and improve. Because let's not downgrade the job that Jeff Hafley has done. This is a team that's gone to bowl games, I think, 3 years in a row, which is not very easy to do. I understand they haven't been ranked nationally. I understand they haven't hit 8, 9 wins, all that stuff. But for Boston College, giving O'Brien the base of where they are at, what Hafley was, to build upon, it's a lot different than say what Brent Key had to build upon at Georgia Tech or a lot of the other programs you're talking about when you're 2 wins, 3 wins, 4 wins trying to build up. You've got a semi-okay squad to start out. So it could potentially be a quicker turnaround, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think so. And the Jeff Hafley didn't exactly leave the cupboard bare, like you said.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, so, and this is the 7 win team last year. They were a good football team. They weren't a great football team. Left a little bit to be desired, but they also dealt with a lot of injuries last year. So, like, I want to say Castellanos missed like 2 or 3 games last year. But the point is, I mean, I think this is a good hire. But it also left Ohio State in a very interesting predicament because Ryan Day had just agreed to give up play calling duties to Bill O'Brien. He'd been there a month, just a month. And then, of course, that leaves one of the most interesting vacancies in college football, which actually lends us perfectly to our next point. Chip Kelly leaves UCLA, and he is the new offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Of course, Chip Kelly had been interviewing for a number of different jobs. He looked into the job at Seattle. I mean, he was looking up but he was talking about offensive coordinator jobs, and he was just desperate to get out of UCLA, which I think is a very interesting thing, right?
No, I mean, the writing was on the wall. They tried to
Sure.
push him out last year. And again, I just don't understand once those rumors come out how you can welcome him back with open arms. That was a marriage that was destined to end up in a divorce, and now we have it. And for Chip Kelly, it's just right spot, right time. I mean, he walks into a situation he's trying to get out of, and he has one of the best jobs available pop open for him.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect situation for him. I mean, obviously, we still don't know necessarily what the plan is at quarterback for Ohio State, but there's talent there. And we talked about everything they brought back from both coming from the transfer portal, guys that could have been draft eligible that are coming back, plus the recruiting. I mean, this is a situation where Chip Kelly is going to walk into an offense that should be one of the 5 or 6 best in the entire country. And obviously, I think you mentioned the Ryan Day play calling thing. Chip Kelly's not taking this job if he's not calling plays. So I don't think that's up for debate either. This is a situation that worked out, I think, great for Chip Kelly. I don't think he was going to leave UCLA and immediately get another head coaching job. But I don't think you were going to find a better offensive coordinator role here. And it's a couple things. Now, you and I have talked about it. I don't think the hiring of Chip Kelly changes anything, at least in my opinion. But I feel like there is still a hot seat situation at Ohio State. And so Ryan Day, whether Chip Kelly succeeds or not, Ryan Day's got to get the job done. So you do wonder if there's a little bit of Chip Kelly saying, hey, like, we're going to tear it up. But if somehow I drop 40 and they still lose to Michigan, I'm right there. I've ingratiated myself. Do I get consideration for that job? You just wonder. Now, I tend to believe that if Chip Kelly's succeeding as OC, then Ryan Day is winning games, and it's a different. That's not the discussion we're having, but certainly an interesting wrinkle at least. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, Chip Kelly's offense works. Like I know they didn't have a great year this year for UCLA, but like it was 2 years ago, DTR was out there as one of the best quarterbacks in the nation, and their offense is one of the best offenses in the country. Like we're not that far removed from Chip Kelly doing Chip Kelly things at the collegiate level. So I think it's a great hire for Ohio State. I'll be honest, like, if you're a Buckeye fan, if I'd given you Bill O'Brien and Chip Kelly, like, at the start of that process, I think more people would have taken Chip Kelly than Bill O'Brien to begin with. So I think ultimately it plays itself out into a situation that Buckeyes fans probably are pretty amped about.
I mean, ultimately, I love the hire. I think it's very interesting. But when was the last time Chip Kelly wasn't a head coach and just a coordinator? Like, we have to go back like 20 years, I assume. Or damn
yeah, but he's
close,
been calling
15, 20 years.
plays.
Sure, no, but I'm saying, like, and not having to worry about the rest of the program, taking a step back and being just a coordinator is just very interesting. And look, I understand why he left UCLA. UCLA was in a bad spot. I don't understand why UCLA wanted him out. That's the thing that never fully made a lot of sense to me, because they are one of the worst fundraising teams in the Power Five. They are 18th out of 18th in recruiting. It's one of the biggest reasons is because they don't invest in it. I mean, the spending of I was looking at 24/7 Sports about why UCLA wanted him out. Look, Ohio State spends $4 million. $4 million. 4 times as much as what UCLA spends. 4 times as much. And then on top of that, you have Chip Kelly, who had probably the best, his last 3 years, he's 25-13 at UCLA. That's the best run since the 80s for UCLA. And to want him out because he's had to start a freshman quarterback, it's a little ridiculous to me. The defense was spectacular last year. They were one of the better defenses in college football. And he changed the way he played and coached games because of the type of players that he had. And you've seen, like you said, the offense has worked in the past. And now UCLA is going into the Big Ten.
I think that's the big difference, Garrett. I think there's something about the change in conference that they felt was the opportunity to make a change in head coach. If you're honest, I would have not had any rumors come up. I would keep them 1 year into the Big Ten and then make your change if that's what you had decided to do. I would not want to be trying to hire a new head coach heading into the Big Ten with your first year, but maybe that's just me. But I'm guessing that the changing of the conference had something to do with it. Maybe they wanted a different face to deal with boosters, to beg for money, and Chip Kelly wasn't playing that game. I think that's certainly possible as well. But I agree with you. It doesn't really make sense why they wanted to force him out, but now ultimately, I guess they got their wish, and good luck to them.
Yeah, the schedule for them too is pretty brutal because they start the year, their first 5 games at Hawaii. They should win that game. Then they have Indiana. Then they're at LSU in Baton Rouge. Then it's Oregon at Penn State. You're probably starting the season off 2-3, maybe 1-4.
Yeah.
And then you get into the heart of Big Ten play when you have games at Washington and Iowa and USC, along trips to Nebraska and Rutgers. That's a brutal schedule. And he was going to be fired anyway. So I understand why he makes the move. UCLA, though, just feels like they're in a tough spot. They're 95th like across the country in returning production. Ethan Garbers is the starting quarterback, and he'll do a good job. But outside of that, it's like it's just a weird spot to be in. Not weird, just bad.
It's also just, and this is the point that we keep bringing up, and I know it's been an odd coaching carousel, you're just so far beyond having a real candidate pool to look at. And now you're at the part of the season where guys are just not going to leave. Like, I'm not saying that you were going to go after, I'm just throwing out a name, Chris Kleiman at Kansas State. Let's say that was your target. Maybe 2 months ago, he would have taken an interview and considered, and maybe he will now. I'm again, just hypothetically. I think there are a lot of candidates, though, who are at the point of the season where they're not going to change because they can no longer recruit their guys. National Signing Day has you're now asking a coach to come in and 100% for the most part deal with either a fall transfer portal or spring transfer portal, but no recruiting class of his own. And that's just a nightmare scenario to try and attract a coach. And you'll get someone. There's always smaller school guys that will like to take the jump, and it is the Big Ten. So there are some angles there. But it's such an awkward time to be trying to find a head coach. And look, I think it was a problem for Washington, and more so as that domino fell, a real problem for Arizona in who they were able to hire. And I think it's going to be a problem for UCLA in what their plan is this year as well.
Yeah, but ultimately, I think Chip Kelly lands in a great situation.
He does.
He's coaching. He gets to coach Will Howard, Trevion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, who made the move up there, and Mickey Ibuka is coming back.
He's going to send 3 guys into the first round. I mean, just immediately off the top of my head, he's sending at least 3 guys into the first round next year.
Yeah.
I mean, Emeka Ibuka is a first round receiver. I mean, you got Quinshon Judkins, who knows how he's going to be used there. But I mean, you talk about the athleticism of Will Howard, which I think was moderately underutilized at Kansas State, partially because they needed to keep him healthy. Man, you get Judkins and Henderson and Will Howard going, like you said, like this is an offense that's going to run Chip Kelly, like we saw, and they're going to be putting up. Look, this is what ultimately cost Ohio State this year. The offense wasn't good enough, no matter what the talent was. I don't think that's the case next year for them.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening there. But Chip Kelly, he becomes the 4th head coach this cycle to leave a head coaching role to go be a coordinator, which I think is just a fascinating development in the where this sport is right now. He hated name, image, and likeness. It wasn't his biggest thing. He wasn't a big fundraiser for the institution. Yeah. So I understand.
I think ultimately that's why UCLA heading into the Big Ten made a change. Is they thought they needed a different face of their organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're going through. I saw somebody tweeted this, and I want to read it to you. So, college football's top hires of the 2018 cycle. Let me just list these names off. Scott Frost at Nebraska.
Okay, I don't think he's there anymore.
Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M.
Let's see. I don't think he's there anymore.
Willie Taggart at Florida State.
Yeah, he's definitely elsewhere.
Dan Mullen at Florida.
0 for 4.
Chad Morris at Arkansas.
Swing and a miss.
Joe Moorhead at Mississippi State.
Cool, man.
Chip Kelly at UCLA.
He's honestly done the best of the group of the group that you've thrown at me, he probably did the best job. I will say that. I will say this. Willie Taggart built the grounds what Mike Norvell turned into a top program. I will say that. You talk about not leaving the cupboard bare. Willie Taggart had some talent on that team. He didn't do much with it, but he did provide the talent that Mike Norvell took steps forward with.
He was not a very popular person down
there. No, he was not.
State. Kevin Sumlin at Arizona.
Okay. Yeah.
Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee.
Boy, this is not.
And Herm Edwards at Arizona State.
I almost want to know the rankings they didn't who was hired that cycle that has done well, because
I actually think that's I'm going to go back and see if I can find this. I'm gonna go look. I just want to see it just for my sake. Ranking the head coaching hires of 2018. Oh man, what a brutal list of names. And I just that's got to be on the short list of some of the worst coaching cycles in the history of the sport.
I mean, it gets worse. You got Jim McElwain, Mel Tucker, Eli Drinkowitz is probably probably in that group. Was that him getting hired at App State though, or is that him getting hired
That
at
would have been App
Missouri?
State, I think, right?
Yeah. So I mean, Jeff
He was really
Collins.
good at App State.
Yeah, not a good run. Not a good run.
Speaking of coordinators, we got another one. Ryan Grubb. He's off to
Yeah.
the NFL. It's been a very interesting spot that the University of Alabama has been in right now. They just cannot seem to hold on to just anything right now. I don't think ultimately that they're gonna like they're far, far, far from a bad football team. They're gonna be a very good team again next year. Um, but Kalen DeBoer, man, like he's gotta keep a lid on this. But good for Ryan Grubb. He moves on to the NFL. He's gonna go be an offensive coordinator.
Well, a couple things here. Let's just take this from Grubb's perspective. If the end goal for Ryan Grubb is to be an NFL head coach, it's relatively unlikely that you're going to do that as a college football offensive coordinator. And so normally your process would be college OC, college head coach, maybe NFL head coach. I think you're now skipping a step where you go NFL OC, NFL head coach. And so if that's the end goal for Ryan Grubb, I certainly understand it. Certainly we know about his ties to the Pacific Northwest as compared to his ties into Alabama. The biggest concerning thing about this is the reported timeline. I don't know if you saw this, Garrett, but conveniently enough, Ryan Grubb waited until the 30-day transfer portal
Oh yeah.
window from Alabama had closed before deciding to depart for the NFL. I don't know if that was coincidence or on purpose. Really unfortunate if that was the case. But again, it also just could have been coincidence as things were figured out there in Seattle. Obviously, it took them a little bit longer than expected to get Mike McDonald in line. And then look, for Ryan Grubb, you're going to a Seattle offense where you got a defensive head coach, so the offense is yours. You got some playmakers there, man. Like you've got some real playmakers. If your running backs can stay healthy, you got DK Metcalf and you got some pieces there. I don't know what you're doing at the quarterback position. If it's Geno for more than another year, or you draft someone, whatever the plan is. Maybe there's some impact where they're sitting in the middle of the first round and Michael Penix comes through and you sit him behind Geno for a year and look out. Who knows? I think this is a good move for Ryan Grubb, though. This is a guy that was going to get a head coaching job sooner rather than later, according to many. And it's a situation where going, back to where the surroundings he's familiar with, and probably skipping a step if NFL head coach is ultimately what he desires. So, but yeah, you're right though. For Kalen DeBoer for the Alabama program, I mean, for a program that had been so stable and consistent under Nick Saban, I mean, it is the exact opposite of that right now. And there's probably nothing that will actually change that until we get on the field and see these guys play like the Alabama that we've seen in years past. Because if not, it's going to be even more so.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how in the coming years we look at Alabama. I mean, Kalen DeBoer's a great coach. He's a really good coach. He hasn't really
No
cut it
program's recession
necessarily.
proof, Garrett.
Nope, it's true. I mean, we might see a little bit of regression from this Alabama team. I think they're still going to be a very good football team next year. Like, I'd be very surprised if they don't make the 12-team playoff in 2024. But we'll see, man. It's
What
getting
you
kind
don't
of
want is
interesting
next
because
the best team that Kalen DeBoer has, and it starts there because they got the Saban, and then
yep,
it just look. No program is
we'll see.
recession proof. We've seen that.
Yep, every program can falter. Every single team.
One wrong
USC did it.
hire, and you're in trouble.
I don't think Kalen. I think Kalen DeBoer is going to be a good coach. I don't know if he's going to be able to sustain that level that Alabama fans have come
And
to.
we've talked about it. I don't think realistically
No.
you have to sustain that level, but every 2 or 3 years you kind of need to make a run at it. I don't know if it's every single year, and 11-1's a down year,
Yeah.
the way Saban's, but you got to be making a run at it every 2, 3, or 4 years. You got to really have a contender.
Yeah, and he's also going to be taking, or excuse me, Ryan Grubb is going to be taking offensive line coach Scott Huff with him to the Seahawks. So he has 2 vacancies that he has to fill. I this carousel just continues to spin. And I wonder if there's any thought behind the idea of Kalen DeBoer calling plays. Do you think he would just tap his own
Yeah,
tap
I mean
himself, I guess?
he'll certainly fill the role in some manner, but whether or not he cedes control of the offense, that's a great question. It probably depends how he feels his offense can work year one under Jalen Milroe, and if he thinks he gets an offensive coordinator that maybe views things a little bit differently and can make it work under that sort of quarterback, maybe he does still hand over play calling duties. That's a good question. It'll be interesting to see, but he's definitely going to fill the role. I mean, whether or not you think Alabama's whatever as a program, I mean, OC at Alabama still comes with a pretty handy title and a pretty decent payday, I would imagine as well.
Yeah, and I wonder if he promotes from within, if he does hire an offensive coordinator from or some other outside of himself, and maybe he can still call plays, and then you hire like a pseudo offensive coordinator just to handle the day-to-day sort of thing
Right.
of the offense. But we'll see what ends up happening with this. We're going to keep our fingers on the pulse of the Alabama Crimson Tide, who just truly have been the most interesting place in college football this offseason. We're 2 months into the almost it's about a month actually. I think it was just about a month of this offseason, and this cycle, the world just keeps spinning, man. The world just keeps spinning. We have a lot of college football news and conversation that we're going to have all offseason long. So make sure you are liked and you are subscribed to College Football Overtime so you can stay a part of it. Drop a comment. Let us know how we did. Let us know if there's something you want us to talk about too. We can get to that here in the coming weeks. But Abe Gordon, been fun. We'll see y'all next time.